The Deschutes Basin is a wonderful place to live or visit, but Central Oregon's water resources are long overdrawn. 100 years ago, more irrigation rights were distributed than there was water available in the basin's rivers, without regard to the health of these important waterways. This overallocation combined with a multi-year drought has exacerbated water shortages for struggling fish, thirsty crops, and growing cities.
The situation in the basin right now is we're in drought. We have been for a few years now. So it's been challenging for a lot of folks in the basin. For the tribes, it's our fisheries and thinking about water quality since we're lower in the basin. Ag community concerned about having enough water for their farms. Cities concerned about their growing communities and what are they going to do with water into the future. You know, there's a lot of challenges right now with the droughts going on. And what amount of water do we have for the environment and for the rivers?
After multiple years of consecutive drought, water supplies are tight, dramatically affecting river health, municipal water supplies, and recreation opportunities, as well as curtailing the availability of water for local crops.
Well, this is the high desert, and so without irrigation, we can't grow anything, really. So we're very reliant on irrigation. On a typical year, we might be allocated about 2 acre-foot of water, but the last several years, we've just been in a perennial drought, which as a junior water right holder in North Unit Irrigation District, that means that we're really short. We have a very serious water deficit. This year, for example, we're trying to farm on just 20 or 25% of our typical allocation. And so every drop of water is important to us.
Rivers in the Deschutes Basin are overallocated. In many years, there can be enough water to go around. Today, however, water rights put into place over 100 years ago create an imbalance between users, and managing water to meet those water rights can leave little in stream. According to Oregon water law, those with the oldest water rights are first in line to get their water. Those last in line for water, junior irrigators and the rivers themselves, rarely, if ever, get enough.
We often see very low flows in the upper Deschutes, especially in the wintertime. In the summertime, we see high flows in the upper Deschutes because irrigators are releasing the stored water that they're holding back all winter. Then they divert that water right around Bend, and the middle Deschutes goes from a naturally flowing system to almost a trickle.
We need to act now to create a more resilient future for all the water needs of the basin, including our rivers and streams. Fortunately, there are some highly effective tools we're using here in the basin to address these unmet needs by creating a range of opportunities for conservation, reducing the ecological impacts of out-of-stream water use.
So what are the tools we're using in the Deschutes River Basin? We are focused on getting projects and programs in the ground to make a difference, and the majority of the water in the basin is managed by irrigated agriculture. So really we need to work with those partners who have irrigation water rights. At the highest level, what we're trying to do in the basin is conserve and share. What we're doing in the basin now is taking the suite of tools and we're building out with our partners a basin-wide water bank that can facilitate the flexible and adaptive movement of water to meet the needs for the river, for farmers, and for our communities into the future.
Making basin-wide infrastructure changes of this scale takes a lot of planning, funding, and most of all, collaboration, which is only possible when all stakeholders remain transparent and committed to true relationship building. 3 decades of this work is now paying off. The Deschutes Basin has the agreements in place to leverage the unprecedented state and federal investment available to improve efficiency and irrigation practices. By increasing water supply through conservation, we can create more opportunities for adaptive, market-based programs such as water banking that will allow the transfer of water between irrigators and will raise flows in rivers. This work cannot wait, especially as the climate continues to shift the timing of water throughout the year. If we want Central Oregon to thrive, the time to act is now.
Climate change is the big challenge for all of us right now, and we need to be thinking about how we're going to address it, how we're going to move forward with water. And part of that is really we need to be working all together, all of that, the environmental groups, the tribes, the irrigation districts, the cities, the states, federal agencies. We need to be all working together to come up with good solutions for the future.
Fortunately, the Deschutes Basin has a long track record of collaborative work.
We've been doing this work for the last 26 years in the basin, and we have restored more stream flow than any other basin through collaboration. We know this works. So why is this moment different? We are faced with this year, the third year of extreme drought that we have never seen on record before. We are trying to deal with a rapidly changing climate, and we're also dealing with increased growth in Central Oregon. So now is the moment to accelerate this work. We believe we have policymakers and decision makers and funders paying attention. We're seeing water crises throughout the West, the Colorado River, just south in Klamath County. The Deschutes Basin believes that we can do this differently in a way that we can be a model of restored rivers in a community that's taking care of itself at the same time without conflict, that we can actually solve this problem together. We could work on policy innovation that works for this basin and can be a model for the state and how we can actually adapt to increased demands.
In the Deschutes Basin, we're working collaboratively to change how we manage water so that we can meet today's needs. One of the things we've learned is that we need to think about water differently, particularly in the West. Over the past century, water has been governed by a patchwork of policies that aren't well coordinated, aren't capable of responding to big issues like climate change, changing water supplies, and modern water needs. Oregon needs policies that support the innovative work required to make change possible, and local organizations are ready to help coordinate on the ground.
The Deschutes River Conservancy has been instrumental in bringing the various parties and interests together in the Deschutes Basin, facilitating the hard conversations and developing solutions that can be win-win and have lasting impacts throughout the basin and over time.
Climate change and shifting weather and precipitation patterns are here to stay. We're thinking ahead to have stronger, more resilient communities for the future. While every basin is facing its own challenges, the tools we're using in the Deschutes work here and can work elsewhere. It's up to us to decide if we're going to face the coming challenges reactively or proactively.
For the tribes, we know we're going to be here forever. We also know our neighbors are going to be here forever. So we all need to be working together as good neighbors into the future so we can do good work for the future.